Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. I am so excited to be here tonight with Dr. Katherine Benedict, as well as patient advocates Deltra James and Roxana Guerrera. Tonight we have such an exciting topic where we talk about all things dating, sex, and love. Before we get started, if you're new to Breast Cancer Conversations, I want to welcome you. If you are an avid listener, welcome back. Also, if you don't know this already, obviously you heard this in the intro, but Breast Cancer Conversations is produced by our nonprofit organization, survivingbreastcancer.org. So please hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to learn more about our nonprofit, the great work we do, the free programs, resources, and services we provide to those diagnosed with breast cancer, their families, and caregivers.
We are told this fantasy or this fairy tale, all the movies of like sex just happens perfectly and everybody knows how to please the other person and orgasms happen in 10 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. And let's normalize that sex is often like bumbling around, right? And figuring things out and bring levity to it, laugh with it, right? You got to figure things out together.
Welcome to the conversation. Deltra, I think you are you're just like one word. You don't even have like the last name or anything. You might as well have like the principal. So Deltra, let's start with you.
Well, I'm Deltra, and I am a 38-year-old mama to 5 amazing girls, and I live in Connecticut, born and raised. I have been living with triple-negative metastatic breast cancer since August of 2019, so I'm about to celebrate a huge milestone, 5-year cancer anniversary. I went through a divorce shortly after my diagnosis, a separation shortly after, and then a divorce a couple of years afterwards. And I've now been in a relationship after kind of, getting out there into the dating pool for a little bit. I have a really great partner who I've known for the past 8 years now. And yeah, that's kind of all there is about me.
All there is. You summed it up right
there. All there is.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you, Deltra, and thank you for sharing. And a preface to all of this too, thank you all for volunteering to be tonight's panelists, because I know it takes a lot of vulnerability to put ourselves out there and talk about these types of topics. And so first and foremost, thank all of you for being here tonight. Roxana, let's turn things to you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you for having us. My name is Roxana. I live in Alexandria, Virginia. I was born in DC, but I haven't gone very far. I'm a single mom of a 15-year-old, and I just turned 50 last month. I have ER positive, HER2 negative low, and I've been living with metastatic since November 2016. I'm still thankfully on the first line of treatment. I'm on Ibrance and anastrozole, and I've been dating since 2021 after not dating for a very long time, for 10 years. So I wasn't looking, but when you don't look, they appear. So it's been really nice since then.
That's amazing. I love not just the diversity and the types of metastatic disease we're living with, but also the types of relationships we're in. So I can already tell this is going to be a really great, rich conversation. Thank you both. Dr. Katherine Benedict, welcome. We have exchanged emails because we're going to be collaborating actually on a study around fertility and young women with breast cancer specifically. And your background, I believe, is around psychology, behavioral, psychological behavioral disorder. You probably say it much better.
Yeah. Let me jump in.
Introduce yourself and what your background is and your connection to the breast cancer community.
Yeah, so thanks for having me here. I'm honored. I am not a cancer survivor myself, so I'm honored to be here and contribute to the conversation. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm over here in California at Stanford University. I've been in the world of cancer and cancer survivorship for over a decade now, for a long, long time, and specifically focus on women's health issues. And so what I mean by that is sexual and reproductive health. So you mentioned the fertility. We have some work going on around fertility and family building after cancer. But sexual health is also a big part of the work I do. I lead the Women's Sexual Health and Cancer Clinic at Stanford. So I see, almost entirely women who are at some stage of their cancer journey. And we talk about all things sexual health, but really the first things I tell them is that I don't even like that term. It's too limiting because often what we're talking about is dating and disclosure and body image. How do you feel about your own body? How do you feel about being with another person in your body? So I think really relevant topics here, and I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. So we have definitely the clinical perspective, the patient perspective, and all the things that happen in between. And especially when we're talking about cancer too, if you're on different types of drugs that reduce the level of estrogen in your body, you're not just dealing with changes of your body type and image and all of those things, but also the physical and biological changes that are happening as well because of the medicines that we're on.
Absolutely.
So let's dive right in. Deltra, you mentioned that you went through a divorce and shortly after your diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about, for what you're willing to share, you found out you got diagnosed, and how did you share that with your partner at the time?
Yeah, so the year I was diagnosed, I had been married for a decade. We did a decade at that point in time, but it had really not been happy nor healthy for quite some time. But I think I found myself in this situation, like a lot of women, when you are the non-working partner, so stay-at-home, home educated mom. So I was working, so I wasn't going out and working. So I didn't have my own income source, and I had 5 children, and so I was just trying to wrap my head around, I couldn't even wrap my head around the idea of leaving for a very long time, no matter how much I knew that I needed to. And then I had finally decided that I was going to, and I got hit with this cancer diagnosis. And that can really change things. It really makes you feel like a loss of control, like you're driving a car and you lose control of it. And, that car was my life. And I was really trying to cling to anything that I could in that moment. And so I really, went back on my decision to leave my husband at the time. I just felt like, okay, it's even more impossible now. But something I've always heard people say now in the cancer community is, cancer isn't going to magically make someone a good caregiver or a good partner. Usually the exact opposite. If you don't already have, if there's cracks in your foundation, everything is just going to crumble. And that came to light very quickly when I was trying to cling to something that just was not for me, and cancer didn't even change the fact that it wasn't for me. And I think a big part of that was because cancer doesn't change my worthiness as a human. It doesn't change that I deserve respect and a really, a partner who's really able to support me. And I was better off alone. I'll say alone in quotation marks, because I am not devaluing family and friends and all of the amazing love and support I have in my life. I have never been alone. I'm extremely privileged to have awesome family and friends, and also they are very close by me. So they really stepped in for me and my children when I left my husband. And I think it would be difficult to jump into dating after being married for so long in general. But in my case, I really didn't take much time because, well, I think for one thing is kind of that saying where people are like, yes, a relationship may have just legally, ended, or physically the people may have just separated, but emotionally you've been gone for a long time and out of it. And that's where I was. And then I had the addition of feeling like I need to somehow balance healing, doing my healing work while also chasing after what I wanted, which was, to experience just the fullness of having companionship and meeting people who I felt like I would be more aligned with Um, and so that's what I sought out to do shortly after my divorce finalized. I really had come to know myself better, I guess, in my a little bit older age. I got married pretty young. I was 23, and very, very much in a religious community. And coming out of that, I really wanted to explore my pansexuality, and also the fact that I was, really open to polyamory. And so it's funny now. At one point, I was dating like 8 people, which I'll tell anyone, even if you're not polyamorous, if you just started dating, like, go all up, get to know as many people as you can,
Wait, I feel so old. What is this word? I'm like not on the dating scene.
Well, polyamory, when, you're not monogamous.
Got it.
Believe that you can, have or love more than one person romantically. Ethical, non-monogamous. But I'm saying, even if that isn't you and you are ultimately hoping to end up with your one person, be with one person, I think it was important for me to like be dating multiple people and just getting to know people. And so that's what I did for quite a while. And it was very empowering. I think because I was focused more on myself, than the people I was getting. I mean, I was focused more on myself in a healthy way. Like, I'm comfortable with who I am. This is just who I am. This is what you're beginning. And it was more of a, do I like these people than, do they like me? It's a perspective I was coming from. And I was really fortunate, I think, that I met some very wonderful humans. But ultimately, about a year into my dating and stuff, one of the people I was seeing just really felt like we just wanted to be exclusive, and so we have been since then.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love how you bring like the empowerment to dating, understanding like the confidence that can bring to yourself, what you're looking for, and the emotional side too, where like, even though it was shortly after a divorce, emotionally and mentally, you have already kind of moved on as well. And so, I think you hit on a lot of different topics that we can dive into throughout tonight's conversation. So thank you, Deltra. Roxana, so you're coming at it from a different angle, right? You were a single mom finding out that you were diagnosed with breast cancer.
Correct.
Yes. And take us from there.
So, I was diagnosed in breast cancer in December 2015 and restaged in 2016 in November. And my focus was, my health, my son, just trying to live for him. And I really wasn't looking. I mean, I had been already separated from my son's dad for quite some time. And then in 2021, someone who I already knew for several years kind of approached me, and we started seeing each other. And, I had told him, I said, this is how I am. I've been in a toxic relationship before, and I still, I hang out with my girlfriends. I still do things. I want to have that liberty because I didn't have that before. So he was just like, no, I'm not here to change you. I'm here to just, to be here for you, and hopefully things will work out with us, have a companion and, and just be there for you. And I was just like, okay. And, we took it day by day, and, now we're almost 3 years in, and it's been great. I mean, we don't live together. A lot of respect.
Isn't that great when you're like, we go home to like, no, I'm joking, but like, I think there's something to be said about that.
Because that's my situation too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, the fact, I mean, and, I have a son, so he's just like, it's just out of respect, and I respect that,
That's amazing.
But it's just, and he's just like, well, who knows if it happens, if, when he graduates high school and I'm still around, maybe we'll think about that later. But for now, it works out. And, we just, he sees my son as, a good kid, and he does things with him. He'll play basketball with him. So it's very rewarding to have that companion for not only myself, but for my son. He also, and he doesn't have kids, so that says a lot about him. So, and I really appreciate that. So, and it's been great. I mean, we had maybe a few disagreements, but overall it's been great. So I really can't complain. I mean, it was kind of, I guess at the beginning with our bodies, not being the same as it used to be, it was kind of like, okay, well, my body's not what it was before. There's a few, dents and scars and stuff like that. And he was just like, it is what it is. And, I take it for what you are. It's not about your body. It's about, who you are. So that was, I really like that. And it was just totally different from my old relationships that I've had. So I really appreciated that. And I still appreciate it on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, you started off the conversation about, sometimes finding your companion or your one or your person. I call my person my CEP, my co-equal partner. So we all come up with different names for what that partner looks like and what that person means and represents to us. But you said you weren't looking for the person, and then they came and it started to work out. So I wanted to ask, at what point in that journey did you share your diagnosis with him?
Well, so I've known him for quite some time. And so he knew I already had breast
You already
cancer.
knew. Okay.
Yeah, he already knew. So it was just, we were just friends, and then it became, just friends, and then, started dating, and then it went from there. So then when it came to that point of, having a sexual intercourse, I was just like, I was a little shy because I was just like, well, this is, my body's not the same. And like I said, he was just like, I'm not about that. It's just about who you are. So, I really, like I said, I really appreciate that. And I think that's why I care and have love for him, because of the respect that he has for me and for myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just have to ask, do you think it made it easier because you guys had a relationship before where he knew about your diagnosis? So
I think so, because I can't, I mean, if I was to meet somebody else, I don't know how that would go. I mean, obviously I would have to tell them, or if they Google me, they'll find the information,
yes,
right?
exactly. We're all over the internet, aren't
I
we?
always wondered about people Googling me. I was like, I guess men don't Google the way that women do.
I guess not, but you never know. There might be a few of those guys out there that like to Google and find out who we are, but I don't know how I would react to that. I mean, the thing is that I think for me is that if that was to happen, like if I had met somebody that did not know my situation until I told them, and if it worked out, great. If it didn't, at least for me going through this, and I've learned to just, we love ourselves first before anything else, and I think that's what's helped out. Like if something doesn't work out with, another person or however, if I would have been in that type of situation, I would have just kept it going and probably done what Delta was doing.
Yeah.
I work with so many women so loving themselves, and Dr. You talked about knowing what you want in maybe your older age or being confident in that. I work with so many women for whom that's really a transition. But like cancer changes everything about yourself, right? It changes, again, your relationship with your body, and so much of that is rooted to identity, right? I sort of use this term identity renegotiation. Who are you after cancer? You have to kind of figure that out a little bit again. Did you guys have a process of that before you were then ready to start dating and share that with another person, or did it come easy to you?
For me, it came easy. I just, I mean, before the diagnosis, I had kind of no filter. But then the no filter is like just no filter, take me for who I am, or, move on. And that's how I've felt since this journey that I've been in since 2015.
Yeah. I think for me, I just as a whole had come to a point where I was like, I mainly just care about my own opinion of myself. I wasn't ever again going to let anyone else make me feel, less than or something because of a lot of things that are out of my control. Like I didn't choose to have a cancer diagnosis. I, maybe had to have some different surgeries that, life happened. And I kind of just started to be like, you know what, I'm just going to be me. And I'm me. I say who I am with my whole chest, like, because I know there's a lot of stuff that I can acknowledge, like maybe certain things might seem like a lot, but I never think of myself as a burden. It's like everyone has their different stuff. It's just part of being human. And I mean, I did some work. I worked with my therapist as I was going into dating, and we talked about sharing diagnosis, and because I was like, that's going to be awkward. We talked about that, and we also talked about dealing with people's reaction. I will say, having a spouse you've been with a long time who decides to leave you during a NBC diagnosis or something is a bit different than like someone you just meet deciding it's too much for them to handle. And it still can hurt and suck, of course, to have someone basically make it clear that they don't want to date you because the diagnosis is beyond control. But sometimes it's very valid, and me and my therapist discussed that, like, it doesn't make someone a bad person because it's more than they can handle, or maybe they've watched a loved one go through a cancer diagnosis or whatever, and so it feels like a lot or triggering for them. And so for things like that, I never took it personal. I just respect and honor that everyone has their things that are I don't want to say deal breaker, but maybe just too much for them, and that's fine. It means that we're not like compatible people.
Yeah. And acknowledging that that's okay. It's okay not to be compatible. And I think you touch upon a lot of great topics too. So first, thank you for acknowledging and sharing that you see a therapist, because mental health with a cancer diagnosis is super important. I will share, I saw one too. I still see one. I encourage everyone to see a therapist. It's almost like, hi, my name is Laura. I have breast cancer and I see a shrink. Like, what about you? Like, let's get deep quick. Right. And so I'm glad that you've sought that support, because not everyone feels comfortable doing that. But Katherine, I want to turn things to you. When you're talking to women in the clinic, one of the themes that I'm hearing from Deltra and Roxana is this idea of loving yourself first. And we have two very strong women on this call tonight who are loving themselves first and feeling very confident in who they are and what they want. But I can imagine that you see women who are shattered by their diagnosis and perhaps don't always show like self-love first, or we're putting the career first, we're putting the children first, we're involved in various behaviors, drinking, smoking, drugs, etc. Like how do we develop self-love, if I can ask you that very wide, broad question?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And it's sort of along the spectrum as well. I think a lot of what I see among women is also just the uncertainty of it. Right. So, Delta, I think you mentioned lack of control is something that's so hard with cancer. I say there's three main really hard things. I wonder if you guys agree. The lack of control with cancer, the uncertainty of what's going to happen, what's my life going to look like right now or in the future, as I move forward, and feeling isolated. Right. And dating sort of cuts across all of those, or it's a prime example of feeling vulnerable in all of those spaces. So first and foremost, I think, obviously working with a therapist, right? And understanding and validating all of these emotions, knowing that two things can be true at once, right? You can accept what another person's opinion or reaction is, and also honor your own hurt feelings, and that this is tough. This is tough what you're going through. Control the controllables. You can't control another person, but you can control your attitude about it, right? And part of it is being brave and putting yourself into new experiences and learning you can be okay, right? Even if you walk out with some hurt feelings, you survive that. That's a new life experience. You can learn from it. You can be okay, even with hurt feelings, right? Self-love, confidence, all of this these amorphous feelings. Sometimes you have really great days and you feel really confident and great about yourself. And sometimes you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or you're too tired, or some little thing happens or not a little thing, a big thing, right? Someone makes a comment and it shatters that. Knowing that that's part of being human, right? Riding that up and down, knowing that you will get the hang of this, right? Cancer pulls the rug out from under you. Your whole life gets turned upside down, but you will learn. You will figure this out. You will, you will become reacquainted with your body again. You will figure out who you want to be. Baby steps forward. Does that hit home with any of you guys, or you think I'm way off base?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I'm curious to ask Deltra, if you don't mind sharing, how did you get into the dating scene? So let's say, you're out there, you're diagnosed with breast cancer, with metastatic disease, and you haven't been dating for a while. So you're already like, this wasn't my scene, but now I'm looking for that companionship. Where do you go? Like, do people, like, I don't know. This is very interesting too, because I was driving to work today. This is like why I think the stars aligned. And I was listening to the news, and there was this report on, and I forget what magazine reported on this. I don't know if it was the New York Times or something along those lines, but they were saying they are watching all these TikTok videos of women who are crying into the cameras of how they are so sick of the dating scene and how everyone online is just so not real, and they're looking for that older, mature, like, person. And then, the people in the interview were kind of going deep into like the psychology around, women looking for partnership versus men looking for partnership. What not only has happened during COVID, but what has happened through technology and dating and everything. And so I'm kind of opening the aperture a lot here. I'm asking a big question, but like, how do you start dating?
Okay. I'm very sorry to anyone who wants the old-fashioned answer. In my head, I've fantasized about like being in my favorite place, which is like a little cafe/bookstore, and someone like reaches for the same book or something.
Oh.
That would be soulmate. But
Right.
dating apps. And I'll be honest, like whenever someone asks me and my current partner, like, how did you guys meet? We're like, oh man, we're like this dating app, but it's trash. We don't recommend it. We just left up. We just left up. But honestly, yeah, I just put myself out there on dating apps, which is kind of easier for me because I'm a homebody, I'm an introvert, all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just easier for me to like be more, put myself out there in writing. And I actually played around with my dating profiles. Some of them were very forward and stated my cancer diagnosis right within them. Like I would say, I live with cancer, I live with chronic cancer. Something that makes it easier for people to understand. Like I'm not a cancer survivor or whatever. And most people, myself included, have never heard the term metastatic or induced until they are like closely dealing with it, And so some of my profiles, I played around with that.
I love that you just have like profiles, plural.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, right there. Like, let's pause on that for a moment.
Yeah.
Multiple profiles is like a strategy.
It is. Yeah, you gotta.
You're like doing market information A/B testing here. You're like, who can I attract?
It was testing out, and you might catch different fish in different oceans, but.
And the migratory patterns of those fish.
Yeah. But I will say that I never felt like it stopped anyone from sliding in my DMs, seeing the cancer diagnosis, seeing I had the cancer. It probably, sometimes I felt like, oh, well, that's very freeing. Sometimes I was like, did they actually read my profile, Yeah. But like one time I had someone be like, oh, you're really cute. Sorry about the cancer. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay. And then we just carried on the conversation. It was fine,
That's
but otherwise, there were times where, like one of my profiles, I was like, I just want people to hang out with and have fun with. That is that is the hole that dating will fill. Like I have lots of friends. I have a support system, and so I love fall. I'm a fall girl through and through. And I live in New England. So I posted, one of my profiles was just looking for fall friends, or looking for people to do fun fall stuff with. And I got a lot of response to that. And that was when I was dating like 8 people. I was doing all the fun fall things for free because you don't split the bill. But that's actually how I met my current partner. We both love fall and all the things. And we started hanging out then, and then we just kept hanging out, and it's now been hanging out for 3 falls. But yeah, I just put that out there, and I think it was kind of low pressure. Like I'm not telling people to not be really clear about what they want. Like if you're someone who's just like, I straight up want commitment, marriage, like that is my angle. like, there's a place for that and you can be open about that. I do feel like there's something to be said about like what Roxana said, that sometimes when you're not looking, probably when you're just not giving off like a desperate vibe, especially, then it's kind of more flow to you, but you can also do a little looking, throw something out there. And that's what I did. And I do feel like I was just really fortunate to meet some very cool humans when I finally did share my diagnosis with them. And I never felt like extremely obligated to share it. That was one thing me and my therapist spoke about, because again, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm looking for like a very serious commitment. And so I shared on my own terms. Some people I never got to the point of sharing with. Some I shared, a little sooner, a little later. The responses that I got, I think I was just really fortunate. They were really wonderful. So.
I think that's an important point. There's no rule here. You get to decide when you disclose what you share, when you share. You get to be in charge of that. And that's really important. Yeah.
Exactly. So when I was diagnosed, I know I'm not living with metastatic, but just to share, because both of you, Delta, I think you mentioned you have 5 daughters, right? And Roxana, you have a son. I didn't have any kids at the time of my diagnosis. And I remember turning to my boyfriend, now husband, like, with aggressive cancers, like the doctors want to get you into chemotherapy like right away. And so, it was one of those moments of like, kind of talking about fertility. I was hormonal positive. So there was like, the fear of going through fertility treatment and giving myself even more estrogen shots, etc. Plus kind of giving life situation circumstances. I literally turned to my boyfriend, was like, are you cool without kids? He was like, yeah, we got to like beat this cancer situation. Like, we're cool. Like we ended up getting a dog, not the same thing, I know, but like, it is what it is.
I met your dog, and that dog is pretty awesome.
Thank you.
I maybe trade one of the kids for it.
But I want to talk about like fertility for a moment too, right? Because, how are you, and this may resonate with you or may not resonate with you, or maybe you have some advice for like those listening or watching, but, we're dealing with, a metastatic terminal illness. You're trying to date, forge relationships, trying to figure out the timing of when to have those conversations. But then how do you also confront the conversations about potentially not being able to childbear? And what does that mean for relationships and finding that right one? And how do you share all of that? Is that like, I have cancer and here are all the things and let me just like word vomit all over you? Because sometimes that's what happens. Or is it like drips and drabs? Like, I don't know if like those conversations have come up for either of you, Delta or Roxana, and then Katherine, of course, what you hear in the clinic and advise patients.
Yeah. I don't know, Roxana, it might be the same for you, that I was just older at a point in my life where I was like, I already had all my babies. The baby factory is shut, closed down. It put out wonderful products, but so being 35 when I started dating, I was like, I'm already done. So I do feel for people, especially when like the 20 something that I talk to who are dealing with this, and that that is a really huge thing in a relationship. Like it's something that it's wonderful when someone decides, like William decided with you, that like, man, I just want this and us and you. And maybe it wasn't, for some people though, it's like a deal breaker. It's a big dream for them. They want to have children. They want to have children, maybe biologically. That's really important to them. But in my case, I didn't have to navigate that. It was just, whether they had children or not, they were about to get children, instant children, just at Delta, because I was like, I have all of the kids. My current partner, like Roxana's, has no children. And I have my 5 girls, so, and they weren't even really much of a part of the equation in the beginning, because, again, how I went into dating, it was more just kind of like carefree, and it was just like my hangout time and all of that.
Amazing. Thank you. Roxana, what about you? Any like advice or just thoughts on the situation?
Well, like Delta said as well, for me, I just turned 50. And he wasn't interested in having kids, so it worked out for us both. And I just, it's hard for, like Dr. said, for the 20-year-olds. It's like, you get diagnosed with breast cancer, or metastatic breast cancer. It's hard on you. And I just think that if you think it's going to be a serious relationship, just let them know, or, I'm not going to be able to have kids. Maybe we can adopt or something. Just try to other options. But it's just, I think that's what you should do. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories in the situation that just like, they just choose not to date because what can I provide? And just don't sell yourself short. I mean, you're still a human being. You love yourself, as we've been mentioning. It's so important. I mean, it's unfortunate that, the person can't have any kids, but you still have a life. You still need to be able to enjoy it and be able, you mean something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be my advice for someone that's going through that. I mean, it's just, sometimes I feel bad because I already have a son, right? And it's just like, I feel like, if I tell you, be like, oh, well, yeah, you already have a kid. I don't, it's really hard.
It's so personal. It's not a comparison, right? Like,
yeah. And I've seen so many stories of women with MBC across the ages. I know some my age who, went through out of, they used a surrogate and they have children.
Yeah. I was about to say too, right? Like, there could be so much uncertainty, and it's about finding the right care team and that support system where if having a child is really important to you and that will bring you joy, then you deserve to have that experience, whether it's through adoption, surrogacy, trying to get pregnant. Yeah, exactly. Donor eggs. Exactly. So, there's still so much life to live, and it's a personal decision. Catherine, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, well, you guys have touched on a lot of it, recognizing or normalizing that there are a lot of ways to build a family, not only through, donor eggs, donor embryos, in which case, a male partner could still be biologically related to the child, surrogacy, adoption, fostering, even through stepchildren, right? Opening yourself up to all of the ways to build a family, while at the same time, again, two things can be true at once. It can be very painful that your ideas around how you were going to have a child might have had to shift, right? And there's pain and loss there as well. But with respect to dating, again, you get to decide. This is such an emotional, such a vulnerable topic. You decide when you feel comfortable to have that conversation. It might still feel scary. And you're doing a balancing act, right? When you feel like the other person can hear what you have to say and have that conversation with you. And yeah, again, recognizing you have a lot of self-worth. And so finding the partner that is aligned with your goals, your priorities, values, and goals for the future.
It can feel really hard when cancer has taken so much from us, physically, mentally, emotionally, changing our identity, our relationship with our bodies, our femininity, etc. And so really going back to how we started with this idea of empowerment and self-love, I think is, easier said than done. I think we're all on this type of healing journey and self-discovery, and then really being able to find that companion and to really experience life with us, to share that life with us.
And may I say something?
Please.
Like you said, find that companion. I mean, just, like Delta said, I wasn't looking and it just appears. I mean, just don't give up and don't sell yourself short. I mean, there's someone out there for all of us, whether it's just for a few months or a few years or however, there's going to be someone out there that's going to love you for who you are and not for what you look like and your body looks like. I mean, I really believe in that and just have faith. But, at the same time, as we continue repeatedly saying it, self-care, we need to take care of ourselves so we can get to that point, I mean, because when we're going through this breast cancer, a lot of us would not even, if we're not married and we're single, we're not even, at least for me, that was not my priority, and I was able to find someone that's been great to me and I can't complain. But, I just think, just have that same hope as you do for your health, have that hope that you will find someone that will be there for you and be able to care for you and love you like you love yourself.
Absolutely.
And can I just say, so as we talk about sort of I don't know, holding out is the right word, right? But for someone who deserves your love, right? And deserves your trust and respect and all that. And Deltra, I know you had like a lot of luck with the dating apps, but also normalizing that dating is really hard and can be really exhausting, right? So hang in there, take care of yourself. If you're in a particularly exhausting moment of it, take breaks if you need to, right? Dating apps might be the easiest and the most accessible, but they can be totally exhausting, right? So normalize that. It's true for everybody. You're not the only one feeling that, and just try to have fun with it if you can.
Yeah, but trying to have fun with it is a big thing, I think. I think sometimes we overthink things, and this, varies person to person. I think part of why it was maybe to some degree easier for me too is that I wasn't coming from a perspective like I'm looking for like a life partner, I'm looking for like a committed, serious thing. I think it's important when people are getting too down on themselves to remember, like Roxana said, like you're still a human and deserve love, and you still have so many things that make you you, and that will make you like a fun companion and great person for someone to get to hang out with. And I also think relationships can have a lot of meaning, even if they don't lead to marriage or they aren't like committed or they aren't that serious or they don't get to last for a very long time. Like the people that I met were really great for the season that I was in after my divorce. And those relationships had meaning. They meant what they were supposed to mean. Like they weren't just meaningless or waste of time. Like some people feel like, oh, I would just be a waste of someone's time, or, things are a waste of time if they don't work out because someone responds badly to hearing their diagnosis. Like if you got to have, some good experiences, some fun, whatever, we all deserve lots of fun when you're dealing with cancer. Like,
absolutely. It's all about the fun. And, I think the complication of dating also, right, where it's like, okay, is it going to be a treatment week and not treatment week? Is it the third week? Am I going to feel down and tired and sluggish? Like you have to take all of these things into consideration. Do you want to go out and socialize? Are you immunocompromised? Like it's an extra layer and level of complexity. But with that complexity too, so I know we talked a little bit about dating, we talked a little bit about, childbearing and, building your family unit. But can we talk a little bit about sexual health as well? I know, Roxana, you talked a little bit about being intimate with your partner as part of the introduction. Deltra, I don't know if you and your partner are intimate or not, but I know a lot of us who are diagnosed with breast cancer go through various, atrophy, vaginal atrophy. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of dryness. There's, a lot of challenges even just to be intimate with your partner. And so, Katherine, can I ask you just professionally, how do we self-love and self-care for us, but then also have to deal with all of the physical changes to be sexually active and, receive pleasure in that way?
It's so important. If we ever have a separate webinar on just sexual health, we can talk about it forever.
Yes, I'll sign you up, all of us.
First and foremost, and again, forgive me, I'll try not to talk too long, but first and foremost, even aside from dating, even aside from a partner, your vagina is a part of your body, and all parts of your body should be healthy and paid attention to, right? So if you're feeling any kind of vaginal dryness, any kind of pain with sex, please talk to providers, get resources. There are treatments. Even if you're on the long-term adjuvant therapies and estrogen levels have to stay low, there's still something to be done, right? We want to keep the vagina healthy and the vulva healthy. And so I work with so many women, both who are struggling with connecting with their body. It can be really adaptive when you go through treatment to disassociate from the body, right? Because it's a source of pain and discomfort, and you have strangers poking and prodding you all the time. And then after treatment's done, how do you reconnect with your body? That takes intentional effort, right? And it takes intentional effort to reconnect with your sexuality. Libido is often it goes in the corner and gets in a box and is locked up and never opened again, right? Libido is low. That's really normal. It's related to stress levels. It's related to estrogen levels, right? And so,
oh my gosh, I have no estrogen and I'm totally stressed all the time. I'm William, can we just hold hands? And this is the best thing ever.
That's really normal. And I could talk all the time, but I guess what I would say about that is libido doesn't wake up on its own. You have to sort of go after it, start to wake it up, start to notice little sparks when you see them throughout the day, whether it's like a love scene in a movie or you read a romance book or whatever it is, right? Start to wake it up intentionally. And so that sort of happens in your brain, right? And then the other piece to that is physically what's happening, right? And making intentional efforts to reconnect with your body, whether that's just reconnecting with your body. Like I work with so many women who are avoiding mirrors, don't want to look at scars, are still grieving the loss of body parts, right? And starting to open that door up again to reconnect with your body and find self-love, right? Or at least acceptance, if love isn't accessible to you yet, just acceptance, touching the body, right? Just kind of connecting. And then, of course, waking that sexuality up again. And then obviously working through this with a partner is difficult. It can be challenging. We're not taught how to talk about sex, right? In fact, our culture pretty much avoids it. Nobody learns about that. So, I want everybody to come to my clinic and we can talk about this. But having those conversations, even if they're hard to have, be brave, open the conversation up. Let your partner know how you're feeling. Often they're worried about these things too, but they don't want to bring up a topic that might upset you, right? So being brave, opening the door to those conversations. And then also the other big takeaway I would say is please, 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 women, do not push yourself through painful sex. I really have met so many women come to my clinic and it's like they just push themselves through to make their partner happy. Let's get it over with real quick. It's not too painful. I can just brace please don't do that. Please, please, please get the help you need. Work, either talk to your cancer care team for a referral, gynecologist. There's online resources. Don't push yourself through painful sex. And I can go on in any of those topics more. I'm like racing through them.
Yes, no.
And I loved what you said about kind of, getting to know and love yourself, your body, connecting with it when it's gone through these changes. I was feeling a weird space talking about this because I did not, have to go through like huge changes in my body. Like I had a lumpectomy, but it's like a, relatively small scar to me that like I don't really think about. My partner doesn't really think about. But when it first happened, something that helped me, during moments of being intimate or just to feel like sexy was that I just kept on like a really pretty, top, like what is the name of the organization? I want to mention Anna Ono.
Yes.
And the bras that they make, like a sexy bra, something like that. If you want to keep that on while you're doing your thing, and it helps, you to feel sexy and attractive. Nothing wrong with that. I don't think anyone minds.
So for women to go into their sexual response cycle, they first need to feel safe and secure. Yeah. So whatever you need to do to feel safe and secure, whether it's a little bit of a cover up, a sexy bralette, so that you can relax in that moment. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then please use vaginal moisturizer if you need, lubricant during sex. I work with a gynecologist who says, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have a cancer history. All women should be using lube all the time. Right. So don't be afraid to introduce those things into the bedroom.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I definitely want to follow up with all of us on, future topics and take a deeper dive into sexual health. I think someone once told me similar too, like you put cream on your face, you wash your face every day, you brush your teeth every day. Like, why are you not taking care of your health down there? So, really just trying to normalize that and talk about it and share resources. Like what works best for you? What do you work? Like, what are you using, et cetera? And so I think that's, just crowdsourcing is really helpful.
And bring it up with your cancer care team. They need to know that you want to talk about this, that their patients want to talk about it. So if you're feeling brave enough, bring it up to them. They might have referrals in your institution or elsewhere, and be able to connect you with resources as well.
That's really great. Thank you.
So I definitely agree with Laura, if I may say,
please.
It's like, thing is for me, it's like at an older and at my age now, it's like when I was younger, it's just like, those are just not talked about. Like Dr. Katherine says, it's like, to to sin. Oh my God, don't touch your body. Don't do, and I'm trying to finally change that and just communicate, learning to communicate with your partner of what you desire and vice versa. Right. And I think that's really important. And it's still, still work in progress because it's, I'm just not used to that. And also I attend a support group in my area. It's called Get Your Groove Back. And that's very helpful because you get to talk to other women that are going through the same thing. It's like, what do you use? What do you do? And it's like, it's unfortunate. I mean, I guess if we didn't have it, and supposedly with menopause, you have to go through it anyways. It just seems like so much work. It's so exhausting. I'm like, why do we have so much to do? As a woman, we just have so much to do. So it's just like, it's exhausting. But communication is definitely important. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, I was like, I'm going to check out the Kama Sutra book and start going through that. Maybe get some more ideas. So we've been like looking through the book as well. So it's like anything to keep it hot.
My funny story.
It can be scary bringing it up first, but often your partner's really glad you did, and then it gets easier. Right? Those conversations get easier with more practice.
It is so funny. I'm sure William is going to be like, why are you sharing this on the podcast, on the live stream? But this is what happens when I get to be the host and not William. But, what gets me, and you were talking, Katherine, too, is it like a romantic movie? Is it a novel? Is it the Kama Sutra book, etc.? I used to think I was a good kisser. We clearly fell in love and we were intimate before cancer. But then post-cancer happened. And I think you were talking a little bit about the sexual health, loss of libido, all of these things. He started growing a beard and a mustache. And I can't figure out how to kiss him. I have become the worst kisser. And I'm we're just pecking we're 13-year-olds. And I'm how is this going to advance to anything? Oh my God. So that's my little funny story to totally.
You bring up another point that we are told this fantasy or this fairy tale, all the movies of sex just happens perfectly and everybody knows how to please the other person and orgasms happen in 10 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. And let's normalize that sex is often bumbling around, right? And figuring things out and bring levity to it, laugh with it, right? You got to figure things out together.
Absolutely. Well, we're approaching the top of our hour. This has been such a fun and engaging conversation. I really hope you guys enjoyed being here tonight. I know that we have some people watching us on the live stream with comments, so thank you all for tuning in to our NBC webinar series. But before we wrap up, I just want to make sure, if there's any last lingering comments, words of wisdom, questions for each other, that we all have an opportunity before we say goodnight.
I did want to say something regarding the dating. That's Delta was saying, with apps. If I was in the situation, I don't think I would do apps. I just feel like, once again, I'm just being lazy. It's just too much work for me. But what I have heard that other people do is there's an app called Meetup. So if you hiking and you do that, I think that also, I have a friend of mine that she hikes and she's met a few guys there. It's a bunch of women and men. So I think if you go into that app and look for something you like in a hobby, maybe not looking, but it may happen. So,
yeah. Finding the community, bringing people together.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a great recommendation.
That's nice and old fashioned style. I would not recommend most of the apps that I use. People know that they're popular, but I have not gotten to use this app, but it is, I'm constantly seeing advertisements for it, and I'm like, what a great idea. And it is, I think it's called Dateability. And it is specifically for people living with disabilities or chronic illnesses to connect them, which I'm like, whew, that sounds hard, but also that sounds really awesome. And a safer space, to just jump it into the huge, vast dating pool. So
Dateability, I like that.
I think that's good to check out. And the only thing I'd want to leave people with is kind of back to the point I made earlier about relationships still being able to have meaning. And it's this illusion that people have of forever. And so a lot of times people feel like, oh, well, what's the point of someone being in a relationship with me if I can't give them forever? But relationships can still mean so much, even if they're just for a season. And even with NBC, I don't know, how much time I have, and neither does my partner, who's a healthy person. We just know that we value each other in our relationship for however long that we get to have it. So
I'm so glad you said that. Just hearing that out loud really resonated with me. I don't know, but I just got goosebumps. It's just that's giving us permission to say, I can appreciate this point in time, And it doesn't have to be this forever piece.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending the hour with us and being so transparent and open and vulnerable and fun. So thank you all. Have a beautiful evening. And thank you everyone for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast are from personal experiences and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you're looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Until next time, keep on thriving.